Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. We've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. I'm Jenny Taft with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. How are we guys doing today?
Doing great. We'll find out in segment 2, Jenny, if ESPN did the right thing by GOAT James. If they didn't, I'm going to tear up my whole office. On TV, live.
Really? I thought you should have torn it up a long time ago because I don't even know where we're having a show today. The GOAT debate is over. It's done. You're finished. Thank you.
Skip, for the next segment, I haven't seen who ESPN ranked the top 10, 1 through 10. I'm going to wait for Jenny to put it on the screen, and then I'm going to react. So you're going to see my natural reaction when I see this. So it might go dark on my end. I'm just saying.
All right. We are preparing for that moment. But speaking of, MJ and LeBron, everyone has been weighing in on the Last Dance documentary, including so many all-time greats, including Shaquille O'Neal. He is sharing his thoughts, and Shaq said Jordan is the greatest by far. Shaq also said, quote, he's a 10. There's a lot of 7s or 8s around there, but there's no 9s or 10s. So Shannon, how offended are you that Shaq basically dismissed LeBron as a 7 or 8?
I'm not offended by Shaq's opinion because I know Shaq very well, Skip. And Shaq played the game, played at a very high level. He's he won the chip 4 times. He's an MVP, 3 finals MVP. So I have the utmost respect. Where I push back on Shaq is that he's saying there's no 9, that nobody is even close. So if you're saying Kareem, Magic, Bird, Kobe, LeBron, Wilt, Russell are 7 and 8s, what is he saying about himself? Because it's going to be very interesting to see where he falls in that pecking order of the top 10. Skip, is going to be very interesting because if he's saying those guys are 7 and 8, there are no 9s, and by all indication from what I've heard, ever read, he's not in front of any of those guys. So if those guys are 7s and 8s, what must Shaq be? So he doesn't know. He think while he's hyping up Michael, he's really doing a disservice to himself because he's putting guys that are considered greater than he is at 7 and 8. So that must mean he's a 5 or 6 or a 3 or 4. Skip, for me, when I heard him say, it just validates. Shaq, you played against Mike. You played against Mike in the last three-peat. You needed to see the video to offer you validation of how great Mike was. Skip, I don't need to see another video of LT. If I don't ever see time again in highlights, I know what he was. I played in that era. Skip, when you cover somebody, you didn't need that video. You was around in 98. If you were around, this video should be, now, someone that wasn't around that didn't see Mike. Okay, I get that. Wow, man, I ain't know Mike did it like that. I ain't know what he did was like that. But, Skip, it's more of behind the scenes. This video mainly, Skip, was about what drove Mike and the lengths that he was willing to go through to show that maniacal drive that he had. That's what I've gathered from it, Skip. What Mike was willing to do. The people that he was willing to push, drag, kick, whatever to help get him to the mountaintop. That's what I got from it. Skip, it wasn't about on the court. We know come on, man. The man averaged 30. So obviously he could put the ball in the basket out of the clip. No, we had not seen before. Well, Will. But for the sake of this argument, so I didn't need the video. I watched Mike from 82 all the way to his final shot with the Wizards. But Skip, for Shaq to say nobody's even close, nobody's a 9, 7 and 8, I think that's more of an indication on him than it was propping Mike up. An indictment on him than propping Mike up.
Okay, before I respond to everything you just said, allow me to say, for your benefit and LeBron's, would somebody out there please say something nice about LeBron James? I mean, I've never seen anything like this, Shannon Sharp. Another day, another shocking shot at your man, LeBron James.
Yeah.
The Last Dance has been open season on LeBron James. Again, never seen anything like it. The Last Dance and all of its fallout has been as unmerciful on your man LeBron as Michael Jordan was on Scottie Burrell, as we've been seeing in the documentary each night. In the end, it's one shot after another from Hall of Famers or highly credible sources, and this one might have topped the list because, to your point, Shannon, and I'm glad you made that point, even the great Shaquille O'Neal, and we're going to talk in our next topic about where he does rank versus LeBron, but even the dynamic, dominant Shaq Diesel is giving it up to Michael Jordan and saying, hey, we're all the rest of us, all the greats, all the pantheon, we're all 7s and 8s compared to that one guy who was a 10. And there are no 9s, says Shaquille O'Neal. What's his credibility? Well, obviously he won 4 championships. He had 3 finals MVPs. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? He actually played 1 year in Cleveland with LeBron James. Unfortunately, that was the year in 2010 that ended with LeBron ending his first go-around in Cleveland by being accused by the owner, Dan Gilbert, of quitting against the Boston Celtics. So clearly, Shaq saw up close and personal that LeBron against the Celtics just shrank, melted, disappeared in games 4, 5, and 6. What's that?
Was that the MVP season? Was that the back-to-back season at which LeBron won MVP? I think 9 and 10. He won the MVP. But go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm going ahead because I asked anybody to please pull the tapes of games 4, 5, and 6 against the Celtics, which was followed the next year, his first go-round with the Heat, his first finals with the Heat against Dallas, in which it was the all-time superstar meltdown, games 4, 5, and 6, in the finals against the Mavericks. So my point is, everybody knows that, except you, that LeBron is disqualified from any conversation with Michael, Jeffrey, Jordan. So Shaq is going so far as to saying all of us are 7s and 8s, and there's 110. He's saying that your man LeBron doesn't even belong in the same conversation or basketball universe with LeBron. And again, I value this, Shannon, because Shaq has a monstrous ego to go along with his monstrous ability. And even he gets it. He saw it. He felt it up close and personal. One guy is a 7 or 8, the guy that you say is the GOAT, and the other guy who I say is the GOAT and have said this for decades is a 10. And to me, that all-time slammed the door shut on the LeBron GOAT case, as I call him, the phony GOAT, rated PG as in phony GOAT. And I want everybody today to sit back and almost feel sorry for LeBron because, Shannon, it's been this daily onslaught, this daily bombardment from highly credible sources against LeBron. So let me just quickly hit the highlights, or for you, the lowlights. We've had Dennis Rodman saying that he could shut down LeBron by guarding him because LeBron has a very simple game with no moves, says Dennis Rodman. And that Michael's commitment at any cost, his spare no expense, drive and desire, win at all costs, was something that LeBron has never even thought about having. That from Dennis Rodman. And then we had Charles Barkley ranking LeBron 7th on his all-time list, one spot up from 8th. And then we had Mike Malone, who was a 4-year assistant coach with LeBron in Cleveland, saying that LeBron just doesn't have the killer mentality that Michael had. Duh. That's what I've been trying to tell you for 4 years. And then we had David Blatt, who coached LeBron as the head coach in Cleveland for a year and a half in his second time around in Cleveland, saying that, well, LeBron had to chase championships while Michael stayed and won all 6 in Chicago, while obviously LeBron took his talents to South Beach, then back to Cleveland, then to Hollywood. And Michael said, I'll stay here. And Blatt also took the ultimate shot at LeBron, saying that Michael was more about us, while LeBron was more about I. Well, man, that's from your former head coach. Then we had Tony Kukoc out of left field saying, well, it's obvious to him that Kevin Durant is the best player in the NBA today. Wow. The Michael Jordan of Europe, as he was once called, said that. And then even Kobe, we saw in one of his last interviews, and this one in the documentary, saying, what you get from me is from him. My 5 championships are because of him. Whew. That's a coronation quote. And then Larry Bird obviously had referred after the 63-point game at the Boston Garden in the playoffs, it was God disguised as Michael Jordan. And then John Sally in the documentary said, he wasn't human. That's why we needed the Jordan rules. And finally, we had the great Magic Johnson just flat out proclaiming, well, Michael was the GOAT. Wow. That's a lot. That's an onslaught, Shannon. I don't know how you're ever going to survive this, because the last dance has been your last dance for your GOAT argument.
Now, Skip, I want you to keep that same energy, because you said David Blatt said Michael stayed in one city and won those championships. So I want you to keep that energy, because we know one guy that just left after 20 years to chase a championship. So I want that same energy. I want that energy that you just had when you read David Blatt's statement, when that guy that just left New England to go chase championships in Tampa. I want you to have that same energy. Now, I'm going to need that this year. I'm going to need that moving forward. Second of all,
you've got it.
Go ahead.
Because, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, finish up. I want you to hit that one. Go ahead.
Tom Brady obviously got pushed out the back door over the last 3 years by a head coach who wants to prove he can win without Tom Brady. Totally different scenario. Tom would have liked nothing more than to finish in New England. The owner wanted him to finish in New England. The head coach that you call the GOAT coach, wrong, wants to show he can do it with Jared Stidham. Okay, God bless and good luck. So Tom is going to chase championships because he was forced to chase them.
Well, LeBron James would have loved nothing more to spend his entire career in Cleveland had Dan Gilbert could have brought talent around him in order for him to succeed. Because remember, Skip, in that letter in which he typed up and emailed or however it got out, he says he will win a title before the self-proclaimed king. So he was going to show that I can win a title without GOAT James. That being past that now, Skip. Now, you said accusation. The owner accused LeBron James of quitting. How many times have people accused Shaq of being lazy, of Shaq of not playing hard? And again, I say an accusation is not fact. An accusation is not truth. That is not an admission of that is being the case or not, Skip Bayless. So we need to stop with these accusations. I hate that. Now, with that being said, if a guy that has 16 All-NBA, 13 of them being first, 16-time All-Star, a 4-time league MVP, a 3-time finals MVP, a 6-time defensive first team. Skip, if that's a 7 or 8 player, everybody else can be no higher than a 6. So Kareem with 6 MVPs, 6 championships, all-time leading scorer. What is he? What's Wilt? What's Russell? What's Bird, Magic? I just want to know what are they? What are they? Skip, I mean, really?
They're all 8.
Man, you out your mind, Skip. Like I said, I got no problem. If Shaq want to say Jordan is the best, I got no problem with Shaq saying he believes that Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time and saying that he's a 10. But to say that there's no one close, that's like saying there's no one even close in intelligence as Albert Einstein. When we, Skip, we might not develop the theory E equals M square or develop the H-bomb, but that's entirely different. That doesn't mean that someone doesn't have the wherewithal, the mental intellect. That just means they didn't come up with the formula to develop a bomb. Okay, fine, that's cool. Skip, there are musicians that's talented, but to say, oh, there'll never be a Bach, there'll never be a Strauss or a Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, come on, Skip. Really? To say
Shannon,
there's no one close?
Shannon, in a few minutes, we're also going to get into another topic in which Doc Rivers, now the coach of the Los Angeles Clippers, one of the greatest coaches ever, a championship NBA coach, says that Michael Jordan was the greatest superstar defensive player in the history of basketball. So Doc is saying everybody's missing the point that Michael was at least as dominant on defense as he was on offense. He won 10 scoring titles, but he also was 9 times first team All-NBA defensive. And in 1988, Michael Jordan won the scoring title and Defensive Player of the Year. That's how dominant he was on both ends of the floor. LeBron has had stretches where he was a very good defender, but trust me on this, not even in the same universe with Michael Jordan as a defender, a shutdown defender who could change the game on that end of the floor with his length and his strength and his killer will. He took games over because, as Doc said, there were nights I couldn't get the ball up past half court against him. He was as dominant on defense as offense. So, Shannon, it's closing the case where I'm so happy that a younger generation is getting to see Michael, Jeffrey Jordan in all of his glory behind the scenes. The psycho drive that he had. You call it bullying. I call it the greatest motivational leadership ever. He pushed his teammates like a madman. He, as he said, I pulled along players who did not want to be pulled. He shamed them. He ridiculed them into greatness. They all contributed to his 6 championships in 6 tries with 6 finals MVPs. The totality of everything that we're getting during the documentary and then the fallout from the documentary is overwhelmingly making my case that I've said since Michael retired. There's never been anything like this force of nature that was Jordan. And it's not just about the shoes. He's obviously the shoe goat. He's the goat. He's the goat of all goats. And I'm loving it that the kids, the blind witnesses who don't know any better but to follow LeBron and accept that he calls himself king, so he must be the king. No, he's not the king. There's a one and only mighty king, and it's the guy Shaq said is a 10 to all these other 8s and 7s. And I love that, Shannon. And in the end, it just makes me feel sorrier and sorrier for you because I do love you.
No, don't feel sorry for me. Skip, I'm glad this documentary is out because what this documentary has done, it has forced you to do something like when President Trump was elected. It was forced you to choose a side. All this bull jive, Skip, I don't get into politics. I don't really care. You know, Michael Jordan and LeBron, well, they're both good. Can we just admire both of them? They played, no. Pick a side. Michael or LeBron. It's as simple as that. There's literally you win or you against. That's the simplest thing. Skip, it doesn't even get any simpler than that. And so for me, Skip, I'm not gonna to criticize anybody for their opinion because you and I, we make a living giving our opinions. Got no problem with that. I think sometimes where the problem that I have is where I want to push back, and I do push back, is that when they say, well, This guy's way, way, way up here, and then you got little guy down there. I'm like, with those, they make it, Skip, you would have, this would be a much more compelling argument. If LeBron had one MVP, if LeBron had one title, but with the accomplishments, with the totality of his body of work, it is just hard for me to see. And some of these other guys with their totality of work, for Shaq to be as dismissive and say 7 and 8, that's where I push back. Not in his opinion, because his opinion that Michael's the GREAT, so be it. Okay, that's what Shaq says. I'm not debating that. I'm not arguing that. Where I will push back and try to build up a fort is that when he says some of these other Pantheon greats are 7s and 8s with the accomplishments that they posted, that's where I push back at.
So in the end, Shannon, Shaq's ego did shine through, because when he was asked how many points Michael would average in today's NBA, he said, 45. And then he was asked, and how about you in today's NBA? And Shaq said 51. Okay? I don't have a problem with either one. I believe Jordan would average 50 today because you can't hand check. He was simply the greatest mid-range jump shooter this game has ever seen. And on top of that, he was an 84% free throw shooter. The combination of those two would make him a 50-a-game scorer today, because he played every game relentlessly. And yet, Shaq, and we're about to talk about this in our next topic, there was a time for 3 years when Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominating offensive force I have ever witnessed. It was not pretty, but it was beautiful in the end, because that guy today, with the rules that we have today, against a much softer NBA, I do believe he could have averaged 50 as well as Jordan. They might have been competing for scoring titles, and both have won scoring titles in their careers. So I get what he's saying, but in the end, he's just bowing down. He's kneeling in the presence of Michael Jordan, saying, he's still way up there at 10. We're all down here at 8 and 7.
Skip, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. First of all, you and I both know Shaq is not averaging no 50 points because he's not going to shoot 3, and he's not a good enough free throw percentage, because all they're going to do is foul him. So what? Is he going to shoot 40 free throws a night? And you know he was about a 50%, so he's going to have to hit 20 of those. Shaq is not averaging 51 points a game. Let's put that out there. I don't believe Michael Jordan, Skip, when the pace of play was as high as it's ever been in the 80s, and you remember that the scores were routinely 140 was like a 120 game a night in today's NBA. There were 180 games, 170, 160s, something that we don't see now. That's what, look at those scoring averages. Go back and look at the scoring averages of the 80s and see. Michael had 37. His best year scoring was 37. And nobody has had a stretch like Wilt. Okay? Let's go ahead and put that out there. Wilt Chamberlain has 515 30-point games. 515. He had 68 in one. He had 68 50 or more point games in one season. Really, Skip? Really? We're going to sit here and say somebody had a more dominant stretch than Wilt? Now, we might argue the fact that he's not the best player where he played with, there was only this many teams and he was the biggest guy and all that. But nobody dominated like Wilt. Nobody. Not even close. Because he has as many 60-point games as the rest of the NBA combined.
Obviously, the competition in Shaq's era was much greater, much bigger, much taller, much stronger than in Wilt's era. Well, I'm just telling you it was. That's even before my time, Wilt's time. And in the end, if you look back look at the scores of the bad boy Pistons versus Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Look at the scores. We're talking about 90 to 80. We're talking about 85 to 75. Don't give me 160 points. Those games all the way up through 98 against Utah, all those scores are like 90 to 80 kind of scores.
No, Skip, I'm talking about in the 80s. I'm talking about Mike played from 84. He got 84, 85, 86, 87 to 89. You look at those scores. Detroit beat the Nuggets 183 to 181. There was a lot of 170, 160 ball games, Skip. So stop this notion. And you did cover Wilt's 100-point game. I saw you.
No mercy.
All right, guys, ESPN's all-time NBA player rankings were released, and the top 10 came out this morning. Shaq came in at 10,
Okay.
right ahead of him. At number 9, the top of the list was the one and only Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time. LeBron, you know what? He came in second place. Shannon, this is your first time seeing the list. What do you make of it?
First time? I'm trying to figure out, okay, which one of these guys, Jenny, on that top 10 list can still add to their resume? Just let me know which one. Let that sink in for just a second. The man that finished number 2 on this list, everybody else has been retired at the bare minimum for how long, Skip? Bare minimum, say 4 or 5 years. Kobe was the last one to retire. So Kobe is the last one. Rest his soul. Going into the Hall this year. But Duncan, Bird, Wilt, Magic, Russell, Kareem, Shaq, Kobe. Nobody else. Their building is, Skip, you know what I'm saying? We gonna build bigger building. You know what I'm saying, Skip? You know, my palatial estate up here in Bel Air, Skip, you know, it's not, I still got a couple of wings I'm still working on. Everybody else done finished their house up here. So I'm still adding. So when we redo this list in a couple of years, everybody on ESPN gonna know what I know to be true right now. But let's be real, Skip. The Last Dance documentary just came out, is out right now. Do you actually think the network that's airing the Last Dance documentary is gonna have this subject number 2 or number 3 on the list? Stop playing, Skip. You know better. But you know what, Skip? Today I feel good because all I know is this. If LeBron James is a 7 or an 8, I'm looking at this list and I see some guys that's way, way on down there. Them twos you treat, them are twos and fuse to me, Skip. Anything that's after 5 is twos and fuse. That's all I'm saying.
So, time out. I thought you just previewed at the top of the show that if LeBron wasn't number 1 on this list, you were going to tear your office down, or what were you going to do? I don't see that. I don't hear that.
As he said, if I were to wreck my shop, we're going to have to go to black. That means everything's going, that you're not going to be able to have me in the screen, Skip. And I don't want to do that because we got 2 more hours to do this thing. So after the show, Skip, we might have to have I might have to film somewhere else because I'm a wreck shopper here. You know it's bull jive, Skip Bayless. 16 times he's been an all-star. 16 times he's been all-NBA. This year will be 13, which will be more than anybody in the history of the NBA. 4-time league MVP, 3 finals MVP, went to 8 straight finals. Stop it. What?
I feel like Jordan, as we saw the other night at the end of the documentary, when they handed him the iPad so that he could watch Gary Payton talk about how he shut him down, the glove, and Jordan just threw his head back and just laughed. I'm laughing at you. I apologize while I'm doing it, but I am laughing at everything you're saying because the truth is there's one guy on this list who happens to be at the top of this list who is still active. He's still adding to his legacy. His name is Michael Jordan. And through a documentary that he finally signed off on after all these years, it took 22 years for him to sign off on the footage going public. He did it. And I told you before the doc started airing, the reason he's doing it is because he's getting sick and tired of hearing people like you try to make this phony GOAT case for LeBron James. It is making him sick. And he finally said, enough. And once again, as he always did as a player, he dropped the thunder and the lightning all over LeBron's GOAT argument. He is still active, even from the quote-unquote grave. He's long gone. He's long retired, and he's still adding to his legacy with The Last Dance. It ain't over until it's over, Shannon, and won't be over until this next Sunday night when we watch the final 2 episodes, 9 and 10. And while you're right, LeBron is the one truly, officially active player, and he does have a chance, an opportunity to add a wing to his mansion in Brentwood. It's not up the hill in Bel Air like you. I mean, God knows. LeBron doesn't have enough clout and wherewithal to live in Shannon Sharp's neighborhood, which is way up the hill of Beverly Glen from here. A palatial estate. He's coming to you from the wine cellar of his palatial estate up in Bel Air. He's not exactly the Fresh Prince. He's a little older than the Fresh, but he's still the Prince of Bel Air, is Shannon Sharp. So Shannon still has a chance to add a wing, but he also has a chance to subtract a wing, because right now we're in a pandemic. Stock market is not in a good place right now, and that could also happen to LeBron's active legacy. He could also blow it. He could, who knows, dare I say, have some sort of playoff tournament clash with the Los Angeles Clippers, led by my guy, Kawhi Leonard. What if he stinks it up? What if he melts down, shrinks, disappears against Kawhi and company in some sort of July or August tournament finals of the Western Conference? Well, yeah, that could happen. So you could also subtract from your legacy. And now to your point about ESPN, obviously, yes, they're airing this documentary, but I think they would look foolish if they put LeBron number one. I think they look foolish putting him number two, but obviously he is the face of the National Basketball Association that ESPN does televise. They're one of the TV partners, obviously, along with ABC and obviously TNT. They're obviously with ABC. And so they had to make sure that they're politically correct by putting LeBron number two. But here start my problems. And I'm not second guessing this. I first guessed it last week, Shannon Sharp. We put out, I can't remember if you did it, but I divulged my all-time top 10 list. Was it last week or maybe even the week before? A couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, last week. It was last week.
And well, it was last week, I believe. So on my top 10 all-time list, I had obviously Michael first. I had Magic second and Shaq third on my list. So I'm not being a hypocrite here. This isn't 2020 hindsight. I had Shaq third. I also had Kobe seventh, and I had LeBron ninth. Shaq third, Kobe seventh, LeBron ninth. So how in good conscience can ESPN's list put Kobe ninth and Shaq 10th and LeBron second?
Easy.
Shannon,
because
I'm sorry, that's just wrong. That's just so wrongly wrong, because Shaquille O'Neal was better than LeBron James. I'm going to say it again.
Stop now. Stop.
I was there.
Stop, Skip. Stop.
I covered these games. I watched it from the front row, from press row. I saw Shaq in all his dominant glory. And to this day, I've told you, I've said it many times right here on Undisputed, Shaquille O'Neal, for that three-peat stretch, 2000, 2001, 2002, was the most unstoppable offensive force, I'm talking about force, that we've ever seen in the history of basketball. I told you it was not pretty. It was almost impossible to referee because nearly every play was block, charge, block, charge. I don't know. He played football against people who were trying to play basketball, and nobody could stop him. And that first year in 2000, Shannon, Shaquille O'Neal averaged 30 a game and led the league in scoring. And he averaged 14 rebounds, and he averaged 4 assists for a big man. That's special. And he averaged 3 blocks. And he made first team all defense. Well, I don't know what more you could ask for. They destroyed everybody they played through the playoffs. My Spurs, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, they got like ragdolled, like they were just dolls full of stuffing. They just got tossed out of the way by Shaquille O'Neal. And I got you, 50% free throw shooter. But you send him to the line enough, he's still going to make 15 free throws. And he's going to foul everybody out. You only get 6, so pretty soon you're going to be down to your 12th man. Nobody could deal with him. And remember, he's having to share shots with one of the all-time no-conscience shooters we've ever seen in the history of the league in Kobe Bryant. Love Kobe, but it's hard to get shots when Kobe's taking so many. And yet Shaq was the MVP that year. And 3 times Shaq was finals MVP. And 3 times he was the All-Star Game MVP. And again, if you want to penalize him for falling out of shape in his later years, if you want to penalize him for not always playing as hard as he should have been playing, you got me on that. But if I take that 3-game stretch, he was more dominant than Kareem was. If you could have matched Kareem versus Shaq in that stretch, I don't think Kareem could have dealt with him, and I love Kareem. And I have Kareem 4th on my list, just 1 slot below Shaq. But I'm sorry, Shaq was more valuable and more dominating than LeBron has been. And to me, I still take Kobe over LeBron. Kobe is just better clutch shooter, just a better shooter, period.
Skip, the thing is with Shaq is that 3 years does not make a career. You know, Shaq did play like 18, 19 years, and we're talking about a 3-year stretch. We're talking about LeBron James that's still currently playing and is in the running. After Shaq, after 2006, I don't think Shaq was ever in the serious running for MVP. LeBron James is in the running every year for the MVP, and here he is in year 17. But Skip, if you look at from 1 through 8, what do all of them have in common? Multiple regular season MVPs. You got Jordan with 5, LeBron with 4, Kareem with 6, Russell with 5, Magic with 3, Wilt with 3, 4, Bird with 3. Multiple MVPs in the regular season. And remember, I've said this. I said it's hard for you to be the greatest with 1 regular season MVP. Skip, we don't think of anybody as the greatest in any sport with 1 regular season MVP. We don't. You go to baseball, basketball, soccer, no whomever, and they obviously don't have the MVPs. They have the Golden Ball Award, or whatever they call it, the Blayon Blue or something like that, Skip. If you have multiple of those, okay, now you're getting into the discussion as the GOAT in said sport. But Shaq only has 1 regular season MVP. Kobe only has 1 regular season MVP. So when you look at all these other guys, Skip, they got multiples on top of multiples. You look at Duncan, and I know everything when people look at Duncan, and because Skip, Duncan and Kobe were kind of right there together. And it's like, Skip, all Duncan did, he wasn't fancy. He didn't have no sky hook. Basically, all he was, and Shaq named it the big fundamentals. The bank shot, the up and under. That's what he did. But Skip, he won 5 titles. He was 3 times finals MVP, and he won 2 regular season MVP. And he was a backstop, a defensive player of the year, a defensive player. So I don't have a problem with him being in front of Kobe or Shaq. And then you look at Skip, look, like I said, Wilt should basically you just take Wilt and just set him aside and say, you know what, we're not gonna do anything. Because Skip, how do you judge the numbers? He goes 50 and 25. He goes 44 and 27. He goes 25 and 25. Skip, the man averaged 30 points and 23 rebounds for a career. What do you do with that? 515 30-point games. Come on, Skip. That's almost 10. That's
Shannon,
9 seasons. Almost 9.
If I may say so myself, he was being guarded by a whole lot of white guys, average-sized white guys, and he was 7'1". He was 7'1", the Big Dipper, ran track at Kansas. I got you. But competition-wise, anybody who ever covered Wilt Chamberlain, and I knew several of them, they thought his intangibles were low. He did not have killer will that we see times 1,000 in Michael Jordan. He didn't have what Kobe had burning inside of him, which was the closest to Jordan's killer will that we have ever seen. That refused to lose, that psycho drive. Wilt didn't have it. He could get away with dominating, with statistically off-the-chart dominating just on sheer height and ability. But competition, no. Killer drive, Skip, killer mentality, no. Sorry.
Skip, what killed Wilt is that he said this. He said nobody rooted for Goliath. Everybody rooted. So, Skip, he was in that position where, and I think it bothered him, is that nobody openly rooted for him. They always rooted for the small guy to beat him because, like you said, he was so big. He was so talented. So why am I rooting for the guy? It's kind of like when we go places, we play a team from overseas, they always root against us because they view us as Goliath. So they want Mexico or they want these other countries to beat us in said sport. That's just the way it is. But, Skip, okay, fine. Jordan, we're going to let Jordan hold this spot for another couple of years. But when we redo this, when old GOAT set that thing down, we retaliate. When we have 6 MVPs, 5 or 6 final MVPs, and we got 40,000 points, Skip, I don't really know what else to say.
What am I supposed to do with those 6 finals losses that you cannot erase? Or maybe you try to.
We don't want you to erase them.
6.
Leave them there, because it's gonna look good. We 6-6. We went to 12 finals, and we lost 6, we won 6.
Okay, and I got one last point. I'll give you any of your best year of LeBron James. I don't know which one you say is his best, those back-to-back MVP years. I'll give you LeBron for 1 year at his best. And if I take Shaq in 2000 and I say to GMs, NBA GMs, you want that LeBron for 1 year or that Shaq for 1 year, they'll all take Shaq. Trust me. He was unstoppable on both ends of the floor.
Skip, I mean, you talking about take LeBron at his best year. That's like saying take Nicole Murphy and Halle Berry at their best looking appearance. And they always look good. GOAT James always been a bad man for 17 years, and you don't want to admit that. But we ain't going nowhere. We got 3 more of these years, just like this one. We got 3 more, just like this one. Sure do. Then what you gonna do?
So true about Halle Berry. So true.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. Former Eagles quarterback Donovan McNabb believes the Cowboys better, quote, pay the man when it comes to Dak Prescott. McNabb said that if the Cowboys have postseason success or Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson sign extensions first, it will only raise the price tag for Dak and will be a huge problem for Dallas. So, Shannon, is it really that simple that the Cowboys just need to pay the man?
They should. Dak played, he fulfilled his obligation. He played his rookie contract out. He played very well on that rookie contract. And now it's time for him to get paid, and they give all these reasons. Now, well, you know, and this is what happened, Jenny. When they strolled to that podium, Stephen and Jerry Jones in 2019 at the Combine, and they started, Dak's going to need to work with us. He needs to understand what a privilege it is and be grateful that he's playing quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys and all the opportunities. When Jerry Goff got that, I didn't hear Stan Kroenke say one word. When Carson Wentz, I didn't hear Jeffrey Lewis say anything. Now, you're not going to hear Clark Hunt, who owns the Kansas City Chiefs, you're not going to hear him say anything. You're not going to hear the owners of the Houston Texans say anything about Deshaun Watson needs to work with us because they're not trying to drum up public support to make Dak look bad if he doesn't give them a hometown discount, what they've tried to do to Dak Prescott. And if I'm Dak, no, I'm not giving you a discount. You know why I'm not giving you a discount? And you know why I don't want to play on this franchise deal? One, Alex Smith. Jenny, let's just say for the sake of argument, he have this kind of injury. What do you think the likelihood of him ever getting another contract? Exactly. So that's why Dak, because what they're doing when anytime a team gives you a franchise tag, don't let them fool you. They're really betting against you because they want you to have a down year and hopefully the price comes down. That's what they're doing. If you haven't seen enough after 4 years, because what they tell you, when you take a guy in the first round, within his first 3 years, he probably should be in the Pro Bowl. Well, you've had 4 years of Dak. He's made 2 Pro Bowls, Rookie of the Year, and he's taken to 2 playoffs. If you don't know what he is by now, like Teddy Pendergrass said, if you don't know me by now, you will never, never know me.
So, allow me to say, I know Donovan McNabb, and I love Donovan McNabb. But I do not love what he said yesterday about my quarterback, Dak Prescott. Pay the man.
What did he say about it?
Pay him what, Donovan? Pay him how much, Donovan? Look, let me be clear about this to everybody watching out there. My man, Donovan McNabb, is taking a page out of my man Shannon Sharp's Cowboys haters handbook. Pulling a page right out of it, because trust me on this, Donovan McNabb, for many years, was the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, an arch rival of the Dallas Cowboys. Donovan was taught, he was trained to hate the Dallas Cowboys. And I got to tell you, I must admit this publicly, Donovan was pretty good against my Cowboys. He went career 12-9 against the Cowboys. He did lose his one playoff game against Dallas. That was at Jerry World, and he lost to Tony Romo in a postseason game. But you know what? I believe that made him hate the Cowboys even more. So, obviously, to me, this is kindergarten transparent. This is Shannon Sharpe and now Donovan McNabb hoping that Jerry Jones will cave in and dangerously overpay a quarterback that they don't really love or believe in, so it will wreck the Cowboys' salary cap and ruin their chances of being better than the Eagles over the next maybe 5 years. I keep saying, pay the man what? The man and his new agent are asking for, I believe, $40+ million a year for just 4 years. It could be 42-ish. It could be a guaranteed $150 million over a 4-year period. It's too much. Jerry Jones, who has a reputation for overpaying, is finally saying, I'm sorry, that's too rich even for my blood. I overpaid everybody else, but this is quarterback money we're talking about. It's eons beyond what I overpaid Zeke, DeMarcus Lawrence, any of the offensive linemen. It's so much money that it will wreck the cap for the next 5 years if Dak can't live up to being Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson. And yet, I have to listen every day to a Shannon Sharpe who has told me regularly, consistently here on Undisputed, that Dak Prescott is mediocre. He's not bad, but he's not great. He's somewhere in the middle of the pack of NFL quarterbacks. So let's say he ranks 15th or 16th. I got him at 10th after last year, which was a down year for Dak Prescott. 8-8, no Pro Bowl. I got him 10th. I still think he's he's a top 10 quarterback. But even I cannot endorse paying him top dollar. You can't pay him money that I think would even make the Kansas City Chiefs brass cringe and say, we can't pay Mahomes that much money. This would reset the whole market to a place that nobody wants to go to. And again, the reason that you didn't hear a peep from the Eagles or the Rams when they paid is because they overpaid. And it's almost like, I remember my mother saying to me one time when I said, well, everybody else is getting to do this. And she said, hey, if all the other mothers told their kids, go ahead, jump off the cliff, should I tell you to jump off the cliff too? Well, obviously not. So I'm telling Jerry, no, you can't jump off this cliff. But now I've got Donovan McNabb doing what Shannon Sharpe does. Pay the man, wreck the salary cap, ruin the Cowboys for the next 5 years. And yet, Donovan McNabb, I'm calling your bluff on this. You made it to 5 NFC championship games. 5. Think about that. 5. It's a lot. Now, you only made it to 1 Super Bowl and you lost it, but at least you got there. Dak Prescott has won 1 playoff game in his career against 2 losses. He's never been past the divisional round. He won 1 playoff game at home at Jerry World, a close game against Seattle. And he made a big play late in the game that I thought won the game. But that's all he's got to show for 4 years is 1 playoff win. Donovan McNabb was pretty great. 5 NFC championship games. Wow. And now you're telling me, pay the man from a distance because you're being had by your Eagles blood. It's taking over your mind. It's taking over your brain. You don't even know what you're talking about, Donovan. Pay him what? Pay him $42 million? Yeah, just do that. It's the cowboy hater in you talking, and it's definitely the cowboy hater in Shannon Sharpe, the president of the Cowboy Haters Club, talking. He wants Jerry Jones to do something even dumber than anything he's ever done in his life.
Skip, you know how this works. When Dak Prescott was drafted, 4th round, that slot, you normally get a 10% raise, 10 to 15% raise over the previous year. So if you just do that, forget what it's based on. Shouldn't he get a 10 to 15% raise over what Jared Goff and what Carson Wentz got? That's basically the starting point. You said he's better. But see, the problem that I have with you is that when I said he was that, you said no, he was better. Now it comes time to get paid, you say he's worse. You see, the thing is, Skip Bayless, Jerry Jones wants to compete. I believe Jerry Jones would have loved to have been a professional athlete, but he can't compete. But what he can do, he can compete against these players to get the contract. And so now Jerry Jones says, I won this contract. I got it for the price that I wanted to, and his agent didn't get what they wanted to. But Dak Prescott, because the thing is, Skip, at no point in time when he was underpaid did you say, Dak he's a franchise guy, he's going to be around. Now it comes time to pay. Well, he did go 8-8. He's only won one playoff game. Well, how many playoff games did Tony Romo win in 12, 13 years? How many, Skip? Because this will only be Dak Prescott's 5th year. How many for Tony Romo? And Jerry Jones had no problem making him the highest paid player. Why? So what was so special about Romo? Oh, okay, I see. Oh, I forgot Tony Romo shouldn't be grateful. An undrafted free agent starting quarterback. But, Dak, you should be grateful. You should humble yourself and come back to the table and take what Jerry's offering. Dak Prescott, hold to your guns. Stick to your guns. Because Alex Smith, all you got to do is just go back and rewind the tape and look at Alex Smith. And they just did a story on him, I think he's 60, where they chronicle his trying to come back. You're not getting money. They don't pay $35, $40 million for quarterback with a leg looking like that. So Dak Prescott, they're basically giving you the franchise tag. They're betting against you, hoping that you have a worse year so the price will come down. Don't fall for it. Stick to your guns. You deserve it. You've been underpaid for 4 years. So if they overpay you for a year or two, call it even.
Shannon Sharpe. Right now, reportedly, on the table for Dak Prescott is somewhere around $110 million guaranteed. 35-ish a year, maybe 36, with 110 guaranteed. Are you telling me that if he today, this afternoon, he could call Jerry, I'm coming in to sign. Let's do it. Let's throw a party tonight. He could sign, and he would immediately be guaranteed $110 million. Would Alex Smith like 110 right now guaranteed? That could be taken care of for the rest of his life. And all of his 12 national TV commercials are right on schedule to be aired next year. He's going to make huge more income from national TV commercials than just about any other quarterback in the league.
Skip, Alex Smith was a first-round draft pick, was the number 1 overall pick, so he got that big payday. He got paid by Kansas City. And when he got traded, Washington gave him more money. Dak was a 4th-round draft pick, Skip. So Dak hasn't made the money that a Wentz or Goff has made. So exactly. So I'm finna recoup. I'm finna get this on the back end, Skip. You know, y'all got me on the front end, but I'm gonna make it up on the back end. That's what Dak's gonna do. So no, I want $100 million fully guaranteed with $125 million guaranteed.
Jerry Jones has right now in the middle of the table a very fair offer. Dak should swallow a little pride, compromise, and take the deal for the good of the football team, too, because he's got new weapons. He's got CeeDee Lamb. He's got a chance to win next year's Super Bowl if he will just compromise a little bit.
That's Dak tearing up that contract that Jerry got for him.
What notes did you just throw away? Shannon, I have a feeling you might need those again.
No mercy.
Well, Doc Rivers applauded Michael Jordan's defensive play by calling him the greatest superstar defender in the history of the game. What a quote. MJ was a Defensive Player of the Year and also made the All-Defensive First Team 9 times in his career. So, Shannon, I got to ask, how much does this hurt LeBron's case for the GOAT?
It doesn't hurt his case because it's not true. So now we just going to disregard Bill Russell, huh? Now, for eternity, Bill Russell was the greatest defender to ever play the game. Now, all of a sudden, this comes out, Michael Jordan is the greatest defender. First of all, Michael Jordan was an unbelievable defender, but he could not guard the positions that LeBron James could. We watched LeBron James guard Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Kawhi Leonard, Tiago Splitter, Tim Duncan, Boris Diaw in one finals. So he took Tony Parker to start the game, and when they went small, he guarded Tim Duncan. So that's 1 through 5. That's what he did. Now, we saw Michael Jordan in game 1 of the 91 finals try to guard Magic Johnson, and Magic put a triple-dub on his head. That is not conjecture. That's not innuendo. That's fact. And it wasn't until Phil Jackson put Scottie, and Scottie hounded Magic all the way up and down the court, that it flipped the series. Stop this, Skip Bayless. Stop. Look, Jordan is great. He was a great defender. 9 NBA first team all defense. That tells you he was a great defensive player of the year. But stop this now. So all of a sudden, so everything that Bill Russell did, the 11 championships, the defender, guarding Bob Pettit, the Wilt Chamberlain, all these other bigs, nothing now because Michael in the last dance. So Elijah won. What was Elijah? Was Elijah one any good at defending? Was David Robinson, Tim Duncan? So only Mike. Man, stop this notion. Look, I got no problem. Mike was great. But now we done lost our mind with this, Skip. We really done lost our mind. No, y'all lost y'all mind. I haven't lost my mind.
Really?
No.
Y'all, in this case, is Glenn Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers coached the Boston Celtics. He won a championship in Boston, Massachusetts. That's where the great Bill Russell obviously played. So you don't think Doc wasn't aware as an African-American head coach, highly respected? I think he's the best coach in basketball. Said that for years, even beyond Popovich. You don't think Doc is not aware of Bill Russell's legacy in Boston? He knows everything about Bill Russell. He knows about the level of competition in Bill Russell's day. I told you earlier in the show, Wilt Chamberlain was mentally soft, physically all-time gifted, mentally soft. Bill Russell was mentally tough at about 6 feet 9 inches tall. He's about LeBron's size. In fact, he's not as strong as LeBron is, weight room strong, because obviously nobody went to the weight room, or very few did in those days. So Bill Russell on mental toughness, on slyness, on basketball IQ, and just on savvy and skill, he took advantage of Wilt Chamberlain and beat him all but one time that they faced each other in postseason play. So my point is that that's all well and good, but Doc knows firsthand what it felt like to try to dribble the ball up the floor against Michael Jordan. It was virtually impossible. He wore you out. You couldn't get the ball past half court against him because of the assassin's mentality and the length and the strength and the cat quickness. Remember, Michael Jordan was timed once in the 40 at 4'3" at 6 feet 6 inches tall. 4'3", and he had lightning quickness. So when you put that all together with a defensive drive and mindset, and I got to read B.J. Armstrong's quote in Jackie McMullen's terrific piece on ESPN.com. B.J. said, a teammate of Jordan's and an all-star, in my mind, Michael was actually a defensive player who also happened to be exceptionally talented on offense. In many ways, he knew the game on that side of the ball defensively better than offensively, said B.J. Armstrong. I agree. I was there. I told you I covered the 98 Bulls for the Chicago Tribune during The Last Dance, And Shannon, I've told you repeatedly on this show, so I'm not second guessing. This was a first guess, not being a hypocrite. This isn't 2020 hindsight. I told you that Bulls team led by Michael Jordan was the greatest defensive team I have ever seen. They suffocated teams. And Scottie was a very good defender, but he was not in Michael's league when it came to mental toughness, that psycho drive and killer will, which leads to one other Doc quote. He says in Jackie McMullen's piece, I've always thought players who talk trash defensively are far more devastating than the scorers who say stuff. Michael would tell you he's going to shut you down defensively and then do it. And it's just psychologically devastating that I can't do anything against this guy. He's more committed on defense than he is on offense. Most scorers don't play defense remotely the way Michael did. He won 10 scoring titles and made 9 first-team all-defenses and 1 Defensive Player of the Year. Shannon, I'm so sorry. This slams the door shut on your case for LeBron being the GOAT. It's over.
Hold on, wait a minute. Just for a second, Skip. If he was that great defensively, why he only got 1 Defensive Player of the Year?
He probably could have won 5. It's like, how did he only get 5 MVPs? He could have won it every year. No, every year.
I don't want to hear what he could have done. Now, this is what I will concede. Michael Jordan had a higher peak, longer on the defensive end than LeBron James. Because I think we look at LeBron over the last 4 or 5 years, and we don't see the defensive intensity that he had earlier in his career. Skip, he made 6 first-team all-defensive teams. So clearly he can play defense, okay? So this notion that all of a sudden he's Kyle Kuzma on the defensive end is being a little bit disingenuous. He did finish runner-up 1 year for Defensive Player of the Year to a guy that didn't even make first-team all-defense, and Mark Gasol in Memphis. So my thing is, Skip, is that what I'm trying to understand is that now everything, Michael Jordan was a defender, Michael Jordan was a scorer. That's what he was, Skip. And he happened to be he was great on the defensive end. But Michael Jordan was a scorer first, Skip. Everybody knows that. So if that's the case, Skip, why did he only win 1 Defensive Player of the Year?
Shannon, I'm not first guessing. I told you this. I mean, I'm not second. I told you this from the start. He was a demon on defense. He traumatized teams with his defense first. It often led to his offense. And I got to read one more Doc quote. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to hear Doc's quote.
Final quote from Doc. The more athletic and dominant you are, the less people give you credit for your intelligence. True. He says, it's funny, Bird and Magic, neither of them super athletes, so we gave them all the credit for their brains. Yes, we did. We did. Well, says Doc, Michael was just as clever as those two were. At least as clever as the great Magic Johnson was Michael. He was a genius on the defensive end. He could anticipate. He could see it before you passed it. He could disrupt. He led the league in steals 3 times. LeBron didn't do any of that. LeBron wasn't a Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron did not have that assassin mentality on defense the way Michael Jeffrey Jordan did. And for you to invoke the name of he guarded Tiago Splitter and you're giving him credit for that? You could have guarded Tiago Splitter.
Okay, what about Tim Duncan?
He's big and he's slow.
What about Duncan?
Yeah, what about him?
What about Duncan?
Yeah, I'd like to see LeBron guard.
What about it?
I'd like to see guard Tim Duncan for 40 minutes, and he'd score 40 points.
Skip.
That's what would happen.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What big is Michael Jordan going to guard? Is he going to guard Barkley? Is he going to guard Malone? Is he going to guard Bird? Is he going to guard Magic? I'm trying to figure out what big is he going to guard for 40 minutes. Yeah, Ray J, go ahead.
Jackie McMullen's piece. Yeah, thank you very much. In Jackie's piece, Danny Ainge says Charles Barkley was the MVP of the league that year. That was that championship year that they got to the finals, obviously. And Michael just loved the challenge of shutting him down. And Danny went into the trash talking that was also a part of of Michael's arsenal, that he would get in Charles's head and just psychologically destroy Charles Barkley. So, yeah, he guarded Charles. Again, he was only 6'6", to LeBron's 6'9". Yeah.
So did he guard Charles when Charles dropped that 44? Was he on Charles then? Or was somebody else guarding him then? Because he did drop 44 in the finals against the Bulls. Well, I just want to know, was Michael on him then? It's simple yes or simple no.
Yeah, he was on him. Help me out. Was he on him in Game 6? What happened in Game 6, the closeout game? Go look at what Charles did.
See, what you do is what you look at is that Michael had the better team. And see, when he has the better team, he wins. But you ain't mentioned nothing about him shutting down Bird, Magic, all those other bigs. All I'm saying, Skip, there have been times that that LeBron would guard the point, he would guard the 2, he would guard the 3, the 4, and the 5. Obviously, LeBron James is not going to spend his whole time guarding the 5. Just like Michael wouldn't spend his whole time guarding the 3 or 4. So to stop this notion, Skip. See, the thing is that when you try to build an argument for why what Michael did or didn't do, it's like you're hating. You're not hating. You're just pointing out that as we go further, the story gets bigger and bigger. They keep adding more and more yeast, and it keeps growing. The cake is good enough. We don't need to put any more frosting on it. We don't need any more sprinkles, any more designs. The cake is what it is. It's good enough.
Doc just put the icing on the cake. Thank you, Doc.
Doc ain't put nothing.
Closed. Cake closed, case closed.
No mercy.
Time for our hot topic of the day, sponsored by Burger King. The 3 for $3 deal is here only at BK. So The Athletic ranked the Cowboys by position groups, and the top 4 spots were all taken by the offense. Thanks to drafting CeeDee Lamb, it was the wide receivers who took the top spot, followed by the quarterbacks. The QB position was also bolstered thanks to signing Andy Dalton, which they called the best backup in the league. Now, the running backs took 3rd, and the offensive line came in 4th place. So, Shannon, how do you explain this offense?
I think people are running away with the expectations of CeeDee Lamb. Skip, I've never seen anything like this in the last decade. The only 2 receivers that's probably had more acclaim coming in was Julio and A.J. Green. And I don't know if they got the fanfare this kid is getting. I mean, not Mike Thomas, not Mike Evans, not Odell, not Devontae Adams. None of those guys, and those guys are Pro Bowl players, all pro players, did not receive the acclaim that CeeDee Lamb is getting. He's getting mentioned. I mean, he's getting talked about. Like I said, the expectation, he's Randy Moss, Skip. There's no way around it. You talked about it, and the Cowboys talked about it. They hit it out the park with this kid, and I believe Jerry fell in love because he let Randy Moss get away. He let whatever the red flags were or whatever transpired, he let Randy Moss get out of there, and they took, if I'm not mistaken, they took Greg Ellis. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's who they took then. So, and ever since then, he has sworn that he was not going to let a number 1 receiver or what he deemed a number 1 receiver get away. But, Skip, this is a lot of expectations they're placing on this kid's shoulder. I'm not saying he can or he can't, but this is a lot of expectation. But I'm not surprised. You figure they had 2 receivers go over 1,100 yards last year. They get a receiver. Some estimation he was the best receiver in the draft. It was between him and Jerry Jeudy. They'd add him to the fold. So I'm not surprised. The quarterback, with Dak being a 4-year starter, they add Andy Dalton, solidify that. I'm not surprised. Skip, for me and everybody looking at with the offensive line, they're getting older. But they're still a top-flight unit. So really nothing surprised me, Skip. And if you go to Tampa, I guarantee you the wide receiver would probably be rated number 1. That's just the way it is. I mean, that's the strong suit of the team.
No.
Well,
the GOAT would be. The GOAT.
No, it wouldn't.
Yes, he would.
Nah.
I'm sorry.
You go to, no. Nope.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
my
Skip.
turn.
Nope, ain't happening.
Nobody has compared CeeDee Lamb to Randy Moss except you, number 1 Cowboy hater. Nobody invoked the name of the all-time great Randy Moss. who, by the way, ran a 4.240 at 6 feet 4 inches tall. CeeDee Lamb ran 4.5 at 6'2", okay? But I have told you all college football season long that CeeDee Lamb is DeAndre Hopkins meets Anquan Bolden. I told you in September, you blurted out one day at the end of a topic about Alabama, well, Jerry Jeudy's the best receiver in the country. No, I interrupted you on the fly. I said, no, he's not. CeeDee Lamb is. You were like, who? CeeDee Lamb. And I never wavered from that opinion. I saw this coming. I was first to market with this. I told you CeeDee Lamb is the best receiver in the draft. I respect Jerry Jeudy, but he's a slot receiver and ultimately a complimentary number 2 type receiver. CeeDee is an alpha. He is a number 1. And I don't believe Jerry fell in love with him because he didn't have time to fall in love, because CeeDee fell into his lap like that. They didn't know until Atlanta decided not to take CeeDee Lamb. It shocked me. And all of a sudden, he is plunged. What's that?
But why would Atlanta take CeeDee Lamb when they just got rid of Mohamed Sanu and they got Calvin Ridley? So you pair Calvin Ridley with Julio Jones and you try to beef up that defense. They don't need more scoring. They need a defense.
You strengthen your strength. That's exactly what Dallas did with the next pick, number 17. You could argue, well, they just gave $100 million to Amari Cooper. Why do they need a receiver? They should take the best defender on the board. I told you, K'Lavon Chaisson. I thought it was close between those two, but in the end, I'm like, wait a second. It's CeeDee Lamb. He has fallen from 6th on their draft board overall rankings to 17, and they took him, and what did I tell you the next day? He will change life in Dallas. I told you that. And what has happened? All of a sudden, we see Dak Prescott rise up to 3rd. That's on some, it's in some websites and some books and odds makers. I think it's Caesar's Palace had him up to 3rd in the MVP rankings. 3rd?
Yeah.
After he was 24th a year ago at this time? What happened? A year ago, he was coming off a Pro Bowl and a division championship, and he was only 24th, and Zeke was 15th in the MVP odds. And now Dak's coming off no Pro Bowl and 8-8, and he's vaulted all the way up to, in some books, 3rd. I think Fox Bet has him 4th. What happened?
Yeah, but Skip,
well, you know what happened.
Skip,
CeeDee Lamb happened.
No.
That's what happened. Now people are making the case he's going to be the offensive rookie of the year. Well, you heard it here first, if I may say so myself.
So let me get this right. So Dak throwing for 4,900 yards, 30 touchdowns, being 5th in QBR had nothing to do with this ranking, because the previous year, Zeke led the league in rushing. So they automatically think that's the recipe for success. They went to the playoffs. Zeke led the league in rushing. Dak threw the compliments off of that. This past season, Zeke did not lead the league in rushing. If I'm not mistaken, he finished 2nd in passing. Dak Prescott did 3rd in touchdown passes, 5th in QBR. Could that be a reason why he would be 3rd, 4th?
No, because the Hall of Famer, 4th. The Hall of Famer Shannon Sharp informed me, he taught me that many of those yards were garbage yards last year for Dak when they fell so far behind that they were empty calories in the big comeback against Green Bay and at Chicago. And I told you, I agreed with your point. The first 3 games last year were against bad football teams. So his QBRs in the first 3 carried him through the rest of the year, because it went 94, 94, 82, scale of 0 to 100, right out of the box. And yet down the stretch at New England, he had a 26, and at Philly in the game of the year, sink or swim, do or die, he had a 38. No good. He missed too many throws in both of those games. He missed a throw in the game at New Orleans against Teddy Bridgewater that could have changed that game. I told you he didn't have quite as good a year last year as he had the year before, yet he vaulted all the way up to top 5 in MVP odds, and it's only because of Cedarian Lamb, C.D. Lamb. And what did I tell you about last year at Oklahoma, Shannon Sharp? I told you he averaged 21.4 yards per catch. For any receiver in the country that went over 1,000 yards, that was number one. 21.4 every time he caught the football. A lot of that was because, as I also told you before the draft, CD is no lamb after the catch. He is a lion. You can't get him on the ground. He runs, he plays faster and plays stronger than he times or tests. And his will, on top of his skill, you want to talk about big heart, big guts, this kid has got it. So last year at Oklahoma, he was really Jalen Hurts' only go-to. They didn't have, Alabama last year had 4 receivers who well might be first-round picks. 2 already are, Ruggs and Judy. Next year, Devontae Smith definitely will be, and Jalen Waddle well could be a first-round pick. 4 of them. Look at what happened at Oklahoma last year. CD caught 62 balls. The next on the list for them was Rambo with 43. And then the next receiver was that true freshman, Hazelwood, caught 19. So it goes 62, 43, 19. It was CD or bust last year for the Sooners. So he's getting triple covered by Texas, and they can't get him on the ground. I told you, I saw it with my eyes. I watched every snap he took at Oklahoma. He got better and better. I think he will rise into the number 1 receiver in Dallas. Amari's going to have to fight for being number 2 because Michael Gallup is on the rise. So CD did change life in Dallas.
Skip, let me ask you a question. Let's just say for the sake of argument, Dak throws for 3,000 yards. They still get him. He has 18 touchdowns instead of 30. Do you still think he'd be 3rd or 4th as far as MVP? Absolutely not, Skip. It's based on previous year. What did you do? There's a reason why Patrick Mahomes is number 1. There's a reason why Lamar Jackson is number 2. You look at the stats from the previous year. Yes, you need to win, but it is a stat-based award. The likelihood of somebody winning that award and they only throw for 3,000 yards is not very good. You're going to need to throw for 4,000. Yes, you're going to need to win games, but Skip, you're going to have to throw for 4,000 yards. You're going to have stats to validate them giving you that award. So Dak throwing for over 4,000 yards, almost 5,000.
Shannon, The Athletic ranked the Cowboy receivers as more valuable than the quarterbacks. Okay? What if they hadn't drafted CeeDee Lamb? Amari Cooper last year caught 52 balls at home and only 27 away. And we all know he basically quit at the Jets and he quit at New England. And then he got yanked because he was quitting at Philly. And what would have happened if they hadn't taken CeeDee Lamb, if they took Chasen at 17? Do you think the receivers would be ranked ahead of the... No, they'd be ranked like 4th or 5th down the list of position groups. Amari got way overpaid because the Redskins wanted him too. So they had to overpay to keep him. And I'm glad they kept him. But CD changed life. That position group suddenly became number 1.
Why are you glad they kept him? A guy that quit. You said a guy that quit. A guy that didn't play hard on the road. Why are you glad they kept him? Why are you glad Jerry overpaid, but you got a problem with Jerry playing Dak Prescott? That doesn't add up to me. A guy that quit, a guy that had half as many catches on the road as he did at home, and you glad Jerry kept him at the tune of $20 million a year, but you don't want him to play Dak, which you tell me is the most important position. He's the most important player. But now you change your tune. Yeah. I'm confused.
Oh, no, you're not confused because he got 20 a year. Dak wants 42 a year, more than twice as much. I'm sorry, it's just too much. Valuable? And Amari Cooper still made the Pro Bowl because he was so great at home. So I'll take him for 8 games. He's really good. And yet now I got a baller on the road. I got CD. So he can be my number 1 on the road, and maybe he'll help re-inspire Amari to compete with him on the road for number 1 receiver.
No mercy.
In a recent list of the all-time best NBA players, Scottie Pippen was ranked 21st overall. Now, that is ahead of other notable forwards like Elgin Baylor, Charles Barkley, and Kawhi Leonard. So, Shannon, is 21st all-time a bit too high, too low, or just right? Scottie Pippen.
Skip, I think it's a little bit too high. I think we for a guy that's never been MVP of the league, a guy that's never been finals MVP, he does have 6 championships, Skip. In the season that Michael stepped away from the game, he was 22-9-5. He was third in the MVP voting. He was first team All-NBA, first team All-Defense, and he was the All-Star Game MVP. So, Skip, he does have credentials, but I think 21st is a little bit too high. And I think sometimes, Skip, what we do is that we add so much value to guys that won championships that sometimes Pantheon greats that have not won a championship, they get devalued because they didn't win. And guys that did win a championship, although they might not be as great, their value gets inflated. Skip, I thought he was I don't know how many guys would have been as perfect a compliment to Jordan as Scottie Pippen was, because he was a guy that didn't really need the ball. He was really never focused on scoring. And on some nights, he could just devote all of his attention to just shutting down the opposing team's best player, especially if it was a point, a 2, or 3. And then Mike could take over the scoring load, although Michael was a great defender in his own right. Skip, Pip was 10 years in a row, he was all defense. 8 of those, he was first team. So that just goes to show you just how of a spectacular defender that he was, Skip. But for me, I believe 21st is a little too high. I might have him somewhere, Skip, maybe between that 25 and 30 range. That's what would be my estimation. I think 21 is a little high.
Baloney. I'm sorry. I thought you were going to be very objective and say he wasn't even in the top 50, but now you say, oh, he's somewhere between 30 and 25. Look, I have been very consistent in this opinion. I started saying this in 1998 when I covered the Last Dance Bulls for the Chicago Tribune as the columnist. Scottie Pippen was nothing but a very good Robin. Robins are not top 50 players. Stop it. Robins are not 21st overall in the Pantheon greats. Stop it.
Nah.
I know what's happening here. It's always been happening. That LeBron lovers in the media often vote for Scottie Pippen so they can say, see, we told you Michael Jordan had an all-time great player right alongside him. He had a co-star, a top 50 player, Scottie Pippen. Hog-a-wash, if I can use a term from Arkansas where Scottie is from. Scottie Pippen never had superstar intangibles. He was more of a follower than a leader, way more Robin than Batman. What happened in Game 3 that year when Michael was playing baseball against the Knicks? Last play gets called not for Scottie, the new Michael. No, it got called for Tony Kukoc, who had already hit 6 walk-off shots that year for the Bulls in the regular season. Phil says, I'm calling the last play, the last shot, for Tony. And Scottie's like, well, then I quit. I quit. And Steve Kerr called him out on the documentary. He quit on us. They called him out in the locker room after the game. He quit on us. Can't do it. But the point was, he's not Michael Jordan. Yeah. No. He's not Michael Jordan. And Phil said, okay, Pete Myers, you get in and you inbound the ball to Tony Kukoc. And Kukoc hit the walk-off. And they survived. They were about to get swept by the Knicks. And at least they made it 2-1 down that they were at that point. And they hung in and got to Game 7 because of Tony Kukoc. So let me ask you something here. How do the people who voted Scottie Pippen 21st overall justify what happened after 98 in the Last Dance? Go look at the stats. Go look at the outcomes. Scottie went to Houston, and he was the third wheel, the third fiddle behind Charles Barkley and Akeem Olajuwon. He was the third scorer on that team, not the 21st best player ever. And they lost in 4 games in a best-of-5 to the Lakers in the first round. Then he goes to Portland. And what happened? Well, he was third on that team the first year in Portland at age 34, and they played a great conference finals. They got to Game 7 against the Lakers, and they got outscored in the fourth quarter of that game 31-13 by Shaq and Kobe. And in that fourth quarter, Scottie Pippen, the 21st greatest player ever, went 0 for 3 and was a -17. And then in the next 3 years in Portland, he was the 5th leading scorer, the 6th leading scorer, and the last year, the 4th leading scorer. Yet in the playoffs against the Mavericks, it went to 7 games in the first round, and he came off the bench in that game. And then he went back to Chicago for a swan song of 23 games at age 38. And he averaged 6 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Meanwhile, Michael at age 38 was averaging 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists in his first year back in Washington. And wait, you're telling me that this complimentary player, a very good defensive player, is the 21st greatest ever? Baloney! Hogwash! Go up. Seriously. Okay, go ahead.
You can't compare. See what you do, Skip. What you do is that you compare everything to Michael. If you compare Scottie to Michael, he should be like 100. But you can't do that, Skip. You have to let the man base it off a man's own ability. You compare everything to Michael. Skip, that is so unfair. He's not Michael. He was never going to be Michael, but he was a great player in his own right. He was an outstanding defender. Skip, he was really one of the first point forwards that handled the ball, initiated the offense. He could score, Skip. Now, he's never been one of these. He can't score the ball like LeBron or KD or some of these the great threes. Okay, Larry Bird. But, Skip, he could score. I mean, on a given night, he was somewhere probably, like his best, I think, scoring was 22 that year that Michael left. But he was somewhere between a 15 and 18 a point night score. But I think he has spent a lot of his time more concerned with the defensive end and initiating the offense as opposed to scoring. But, Skip, I firmly agree, Skip. There's no way he's the 21st best player of all time. If you want to say 25 to 30,
you're just saying
you might come out better saying 40. No, Skip.
Yeah, you're starting to talk yourself into not top 50.
No, Skip. See, I didn't look at the list. I just know if you tell me who's behind him. If you say Elgin Baylor, he was not a better player than Elgin Baylor. People look at Elgin and say, well, he didn't win any titles. But Skip, if you go back to that 61 season, which made it 61-62, which people say was the greatest season ever, Wilt was 50-25. Oscar averaged a triple-double. Bill Russell won the MVP, in which he averaged 18 and 23. Elgin Baylor was 38 and 18. Let that sink in for a second. Elgin Baylor averaged 38 points and 18 rebounds, and he was like 6th in the MVP voting. So you have to look at, and like I said, Skip, I didn't see the list. I'm just looking at top 20. I'm like, hell no. I can go rattle off 25 players off the top of my head that was a better. But like I said, Skip, when you get titles, you know it inflates your value, Skip. You know that.
Shannon, I'll just take ESPN's list, and I'll go up into the 50s. I'll go to number 58 on their list. Manu Ginobili. He was better than Scottie Pippen. Yes. He was a miracle worker. He was a defensive disruptor. He was a clutch shot maker and playmaker. Popovich always said that Ginobili in his prime for 3 or 4 straight years would have led this league in scoring had he been out of the San Antonio system that was so share the ball. Then let's go down to Drexler at 57. He was better than Scottie. How about Paul Pierce at 54? The truth, when he was the truth for those 5 years in Boston, 5 or 6 years, he was better than Scottie. Gary Payton, Defensive Player of the Year and great point guard, more valuable than Scottie. Let me keep going.
Okay, Skip, how about
Bill Walton at 48. Bill Walton at 48 dominated the league for 2 years before his foot gave out. They won the championship in 77. They beat the Sixers of Dr. J and Daryl Dawkins and Kobe's father, Jelly Bean. It was a loaded Sixers team. They dominated them. And then Bill Walton turns around the next year and wins MVP of the league as well as MVP of the finals. He was better than Scottie for those 2 years. How about Anthony Davis at 45? You love Anthony. He's better than Scottie Pippen. Elvin Hayes, my friend Rick Barry. Look at their numbers. I'm sorry. They were all better than Scottie Pippen, who's all the way at 21 because people are trying to unmake the Michael Jordan case.
Skip, let me ask you a question. Is he in front of guys like AI or Harden or Russell Westbrook? Is he in front of guys like that? Scottie.
Well, is he? He is on this list. Yeah, he's way ahead of him.
No, hell no. He ain't better. Oh, no, Skip, he ain't better than AI or Iverson. Not AI, excuse me. Harden.
All right.
He's not better than them.
All right.
No.
Okay, fine. But now
Skip.
you're in the 20s now.
Well, he got to come out. Hey, he got to come about the 20. He got to come about of that, Skip. Hey, you know, Skip, when I was growing up in Glenville, Skip, we used to go try on clothes. And we tried on and asked, how much is it? My grandma said, boy, you got to come up out of that. Granny can't pay for that. Hey, Scottie, you got to come up out the 20s, bro. I'm sorry. You got to come up out the 20s. If you in front of AI,
I think I talked you into it.
He got to come up out of this, Skip. You got to come up out of there.
Now you're going. Now you're rolling.
No mercy.
Well, in just 4 days, it's a day we've all been waiting for as NASCAR returns. Don't miss the historic green flag and the return of live racing as NASCAR is back Sunday, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific on Fox. After it was reported this week that Tom Brady and Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels' relationship was deteriorating, another report piled on. It said that part of that relationship falling apart stemmed from Brady feeling like McDaniels was phasing him out of the game plan process. So, Shannon, what does this tell you?
It's telling me that we're getting every excuse, Jenny, why Tom Brady wasn't as successful last year as he has been in the past. Now, it was Coach Belichick starting to wear on him. Now it was Josh McDaniels phasing him out, wasn't allowing him to implement plays into the game plan. It's hard for me to believe a guy of Tom Brady's status, because I've been around quarterbacks that less status, not even a third of the status that Tom Brady has. And the coach is like, okay, bud, what you like? What do you like in this situation? What do you like on first down? What do you like on second and 10? What do you like on third and short, third and long? But we want to get plays that you like in order for this. But what we're seeing here is that sources tell me is that what we're starting to see, Jenny, things that we can never get out. We never heard anything about Tom Brady until now, all of a sudden. No contract extension. That was not extended. Now everything, all the house of cards come falling down. Whatever, Skip, Tom, you're in New England. I mean, you're in Tampa now. Be happy with that. Now, all of a sudden, you want to try to poo-poo on everybody. You never had a problem. Josh McDaniels has been Josh McDaniels from day one. But now, you didn't get the contract extension, and you want to say, well, this is the reason why. I didn't play well. This is the reason why. We don't do excuses. As Skip Bayless told me about The Last Dance, Michael Jordan did not make excuses, and the information did not leak out. So I don't want to hear nothing about what happened last year or the years past in New England. You're with the Bucs, move on, and Coach Belichick and Josh McDaniels says, good riddance.
Time out. Are you suggesting that this story came from a leak from Tom Brady or somebody in his camp? Is that what you're saying?
So are you saying this came from Josh McDaniels?
No, it came from reporters. It came from Gary Myers, who wrote a book on Brady and Peyton, who's close to people inside the Patriots. It came from Christopher Gasper, who covered the Patriots for 5 years, became a columnist for the Boston Globe, still works in Boston television. They're just reporting something that Brady is trying to shoot down. He posted yesterday on Instagram, please stop the nonsense. Please be more responsible with your reporting. He's saying that 19 years together with Josh McDaniels, we're brothers for life. So he's trying to knock it down. It's not coming from Brady. He doesn't want this out. He doesn't like this notion. But what I'm saying is it's now becoming like broken glass clear to me that Bill Belichick was doing everything in his power to force Tom Brady out the last 3 years, especially last year. Because help me out, Shannon, who has final say on game plans on offense and defense? Bill Belichick. That's not Josh McDaniels' call. Trust me on this. If Tom Brady's favorite plays were being phased out of the offense, it wasn't Josh McDaniels doing that with final say. It was Belichick. I've told you before that it feels to me like Belichick was sabotaging Tom Brady, especially last year, trying to make sure he could not succeed so he couldn't argue to finish out his career for the next 2 or 3 years in New England. He wanted him to fail last year. So what did he do? He gave him the worst receiving core in pro football. The tight ends, worst production in all of pro football. The offensive line, below average in protection last year. Sony Michel, who was very good the year before, especially during the run to the Super Bowl, was mysteriously in the doghouse all year, just the way Malcolm Butler was mysteriously in the doghouse for the entire Super Bowl that they lost to Philadelphia and Nick Foles 41-33. It felt sabotagey to me. And this feels even sabotagier because it feels like Bill Belichick was doing everything in his power to make sure that Tom Brady didn't have a leg left to stand on with Robert Kraft. Even though Kraft tried to keep him in the bitter end, Brady looked at the cupboard as being bare. He said, I don't want to try to play with that again next year. I got no chance. That's why I feel sorry for Stid, as Belichick calls him. But, hey, Belichick wanted the opportunity. Yeah, you got it. Belichick wants to go fly solo. He wants to show the world I can win without Tom Brady. Well, I say good luck because I'm going to remind everybody out there one more time that in 4 of his 5 years as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, Belichick had a losing record. His first year in New England, he went 5-11. His second year started 0-2. That was a grand total as a head coach of 41-57 before Tom Brady fell out of the sky into his lap in game number 3 as the starting quarterback that year. And the rest is dynastic history. Belichick is a product of Tom Brady, and now we're going to see him exposed without Tom Brady.
But Skip, we've seen this before. We've seen things come out of the Patriots organization. We've heard reports, and Tom Brady shoots it down. Just like when it came out that he didn't have a problem with, he didn't do what Seth Wickersham wrote the story about the fallout and about them wanting to keep Jimmy Garoppolo and move on. And Tom Brady, everything is fine. We're loving. Everybody signed the letter. Come to find out, that was a lie. That was the beginning. So, Skip, you do realize that once a person realizes that you lied, they can have a right to dispute anything else that comes out of your mouth. That's the way it works. You do realize that. So because Tom Brady has lied in certain situations before, how are we to believe this now that, oh, yeah, that was the case? Skip, let me tell you what happened to me. There were times that when John retired, I would go to Coob, and I was like, Coob, man, I really like this play. You remember me and John used to run it. He's like, Bub, we ain't got John back there. I believe there was a situation, Skip, that maybe Tom would want to run some plays, but he's like, we ain't got Gronk. We don't have the guys that have the concept, Tom, the makeup that when you want to just do something on the fly or audible to something, we don't have the guys that can pick that up. Now, Skip, that might have been a case, but to just like, no, Tom, we're not running that. No, Tom, we're not running that. Skip, I don't believe that to be the case. Now, it could be. Now, because Josh McDaniels is real slimy. He's a snake, Skip. Ain't no sugar nowhere around that. Any man that will go tell the owner, yes, I'm going to be the head coach of your team, and then jilt them at the last second, and they got to give a press release and talk about he's not coming, I don't trust it. So I don't trust Josh McDaniels, Skip, but I don't like all these excuses to why Tom Brady wasn't at his absolute best last year. All that could be true because Josh McDaniels is a snake, and I wouldn't trust him as far as I can see him. And I got good vision. So, but once I close the door, I can't see him behind the door. I don't trust it. So Tom could be right, but Tom put this out there. I'm just saying that Tom put it out there.
Tom put this out there is ridiculous. It's absurd. It's asinine, asinine 10, asinine 12, as in the great GOAT Tom Brady.
Let me ask you a question. So how would reporters know? How would personnel know that Tom is being phased out unless one of the two parties that's being there, the guy that's getting phased out or the guy that's phasing out, says something? So somebody had to tell somebody something.
Yeah. I'm sure Christopher Gasper, who tweeted this yesterday about being phased out, I'm sure he knows lots of the assistant coaches. I'm sure he knows the personnel people. I'm sure he has lots of sources inside the Patriots. And to your point about how snaky Josh McDaniel might be, he coached under, or coaches under, one of the all-time scoundrels, a guy who got busted for Spygate, right?
Yeah.
Didn't Belichick?
Yeah.
In fact, the great Don Shula, may he rest in peace, passed the other day. What did Don Shula call Bill Belichick? He publicly called him Belicheat. Okay.
He gave him that name. He did.
That's that guy.
He did, Skip. He did. So, Skip, you know birds of a feather flock together. That's why Josh McDaniels wouldn't leave. Coach Belichick literally going to have to kick him out the nest because he knows where all the bodies are buried.
He does. I totally agree, which is why the head coach, the man with final say, told Josh, we got to start pulling some of Tom's favorite plays. We got to make him unhappy. We got to make sure he can't succeed this year. And they did everything in their power to make it virtually impossible for Tom to succeed. And all he did was put them in position to have the 2 seed in the AFC. He has what he did 1,000 times before in New England, a great drive against the Dolphins in the last regular season game, 75 yards for a touchdown, 2 minutes to go. They're up 4, and here comes Fitzmagic? You're kidding. And he goes 80 yards and 13 against Belichick's defense, and you give up a touchdown to win the game and lose the 2 seed? I don't know. It looks like sabotagey to me.
Skip, but here's the thing. But you told me Coach Belichick saddled him with the worst offensive weapons of Tom Brady's career, but you still want Tom to run the same plays that he had been effective with the worst offensive weapons that he's ever had. How does that make sense? Skip, if you take the weapons away, why am I going to go to battle with the weapons less than what I've ever had before? I'm not going to start a war with muskets. I need some heavy artillery if I'm going to go to war with. Well, Tom wants to go to war with muskets.
Well, then I don't know what he's supposed to do. Hand off to Rex Burkhead every play?
Well, how about this here? They deserve each other. All of them should have been made. Mr. Kraft should have made everybody stay together for another 2 years. They deserve each other because all of them snaky.
No mercy. John Stockton was ranked 28th all-time in NBA history, according to ESPN. That's just ahead of Allen Iverson, Steve Nash, Isaiah Thomas, and James Harden, who directly followed. So, Shannon, did they get this right?
Hell no. If Scottie Pippen ain't got no business in the top 20, ain't no way John Stockton should be in the top 20. Come on, Skip. For real? I mean, look, I get it. Skip, he's the all-time leader in career assists. He played 19 seasons. He played the bulk of those seasons with Mailman. They happen to be the greatest pick-and-roll combination in NBA history. I don't think we'll ever see another pick-and-roll combination. I don't think we'll ever see a tandem that plays together that long, Skip, and have that kind of success. But he benefited from the era in which he played in. The 90s was slow-paced, Skip, a lot of pick-and-roll, and he benefited from that. But he averaged, 13 points for a career. 17 was his high. To say he's better than AI or Harden or Russ, nah, Skip. If Scottie Pippen isn't a top 20 player, ain't no way John Stockton. John Stockton is not a better point guard than Isaiah Thomas. He's not better than AI. He's not better than Russ. He's not better than Harden. So stop this. He had unbelievable career. But John Stockton is not a top 30 player. in NBA history. No way, no how.
Shannon Sharp, I offer my condolences because you're having a bad day today on Undisputed. You are wrong again. So wrong.
Man,
I told you John Stockton was selected for the greatest collection of talent we've ever seen together, that dream team in '92. He was selected as the backup point guard to Magic Johnson. The alternate behind John Stockton at point guard was Isaiah's teammate, Joe Dumars. Isaiah was viewed as more 2 than 1, more shooting guard than point guard. When it came to distributing and playing defense as a point guard, listen, John Stockton was the baddest little man there ever was. I don't know how many coaches during those years, and I covered those finals, obviously, when it was Utah versus Jordan's Bulls. Coaches always told me that's the toughest little SOB in this league. Shannon,
I'll give you that.
Not only was he an 11-time All-Star, he was 5 times All-Defense, and he set 2 records that I'm pretty sure are unbreakable. Maybe every record was made to be broken, but I don't see these 2 ever being broken. Right now, he has 3,715 more assists than number 2 on the list, Jason Kidd. That's almost 4,000 assists more than number 2, Jason Kidd. And in steals, he's the all-time leader with 581 more steals than Jason Kidd, who's second on the list. Just for context, if we look at assists, John Stockton is 6,500 assists ahead of LeBron James, who's now finishing his 17th year. He's now, John Stockton, 6,200 assists ahead of a pure point guard of this era, Chris Paul, who's played 15 seasons. What he did was extraordinary, and he did it with a co-star who wasn't 7'2". We're not talking about Shaq or Kareem or Wilt. We're talking about Karl Malone at 6 feet 9 inches tall. He was physical. He was a football player. He built like a linebacker, but he was only 6'9". And that Utah team was not deep. It was basically the 1-2 punch with Hornacek as a shooter and Brian Russell trying to guard Michael Jordan.
Okay, Skip, you remember that Mark Eaton, who defensive player of the year a couple.
The Bulls were not afraid of Mark Eaton. I can just tell you that. But whatever.
No. The point was gone. Eaton was gone then, Skip.
Okay, all right, okay, but I'm saying
they had Mark Eaton in the 80s.
They were not. That was not a deep basketball team. That John Stockton and Malone were making a force in the West. They had the second best record that year in '98 in basketball, the best record in the West. So they were legit because of those 2 co-stars. But John Stockton at whatever he was, 6'1"-ish maybe. I think they list him at 6'2", but he's 6'1". Remember, he played every game on the schedule 17 times. LeBron has done it 1 time. So in toughness, mental and physical toughness and value, if we're talking about winning basketball games, give me John Stockton in pure value, slightly ahead of James Harden and Isaiah and even the great Steve Nash, a back-to-back MVP winner, and Allen Iverson. I'll still take John Stockton because he will help you win as a pure point guard and point guard defender.
Skip, what about Isaiah? Isaiah won 2 championships, lost the 3rd, was finals MVP. You think about that. Now, if Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward, but if there's no Tim Duncan, Karl Malone has that distinction. He's the second leading scorer in NBA history. He has the second most all-NBA selection. Karl Malone, although he was not a 7 foot, Karl Malone was a hell of a player, Skip. He's 2-time league MVP. We know what the mailman represented. And like I said, as far as 1-2 combination, the pick and roll, Skip, we'll never see what they did. We'll never see that again. And I agree with you. I do not believe Stockton's assist record will be broken because the pace, too many guys handle the ball now, Skip. Basically, John Stockton handled the ball. it was pick and roll to Karl Malone, or it was kick to Hornacek, or he dumped the ball down to Eaton turns around and dunk it. I don't believe we're going to see another guy. Like you said, he's 4,000 ahead of Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd has been retired like 7-8 years. So that means Chris Paul is 6,000 assists behind him. Chris Paul's going to need to average, 800 assists for the next 8 years? Do we see Chris Paul play 8 more years? Exactly.
No.
So that record probably not going to be broken, Skip. Skip, I think the thing is, Isaiah Thomas was a 19-9 career guy. And because there's so much bad blood surrounding Isaiah, because I've talked to a lot of players, and they say, man, I hate Isaiah guts, but he was a bad mofo. Pound for pound, you got to say he's one of the bad. He and AI, pound for pound, are the baddest players. He said, but, he a snake now. Now, you can't trust him. He's dirty. He do all kind of stuff. But I won't take him being a great player away from him. And I was told that Isaiah, by some of the players that were in the NBA at that time, that Isaiah Thomas should have been on that basketball team. All that aside, Skip.
Magic Johnson.
We understand the chemistry.
Magic Johnson wrote in his book. He just wrote in his book that there was no way anybody on that team wanted Isaiah on that team. Period, end of story. David Robinson said it the other day. He laughed about it. He said there's a thing called chemistry and unity in basketball, and Isaiah wasn't going to fit.
Chemistry is one thing. Nobody ever said he wasn't a great player and didn't deserve to be because of his play. They said it was because of the chemistry. We're talking about strictly play. That's what we're talking about on this list. We're not talking about John Stockton. He was a great kid. He spent all Utah, his wife, he got 5 kids, and yada, yada, yada. I'm talking about play. I'm talking about strictly play.
Me too.
John Stockton was not a better player than Isaiah. He should not be in front of Harden. He should not be in front of Steve Nash. And he definitely shouldn't be in front of AI. Bullseye. You know what, Skip? Here's another contract I'm tearing up. I got something for you. That's the list, John Stockton in front of those guys. How about that?
I think that's indicative of every argument you've attempted and failed to make on this show. You just tore them all up because you just keep swinging and missing. You should tear up every sheet of notes that you have, and you should fire your researcher, Steve. The great Steve Owens, the Heisman Trophy winner, should at least be suspended for his work today because he let you down.
No, he didn't. I'm going to have a talk with Magic.
I am not going to
need to have a talk with Magic Johnson.
Like that.
No mercy.
Well, earlier this week, Johnny Manziel posted a video of himself attempting to backflip while cliff diving, but as he turned around, he slips and falls backwards into the water. It's not a good look. Shannon, what was your reaction when you saw this video?
He got up very lucky, Skip. He lucky he didn't break his neck. He lucky he didn't kill himself. I'm kind of adverse to risk, especially as I gotten older. My thrill, not Jenny, is when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, ooh, the good Lord let me see another day. I'm thrilled. That's my thrill. But he got very lucky, Skip. He got very, very lucky.
Shannon, when it comes to Johnny, and I love Johnny, but you always have to wonder, had he had a couple before he attempted this stunt? And then obviously he lost his footing with his right foot. And then we got to see a glimpse of his rare athletic ability as he saved himself with a quick push-off with the left foot to create some distance between him and the side of rocks. And yet, Shannon, every time I see something like this, it hurts my heart because it's such a pity what a waste of rare athletic ability Johnny Manziel became. It's been since 2015 that he was on an NFL field, and he had rare elusivity and quickness and speed and a very good arm, very accurate arm, and all of it went to waste because he wanted to party more than he wanted to play football. So here he is again, having fun, and it's just kind of sad for me to watch.
Yeah, the risk reward is not there for me in situations like this.
Yeah, it's scary. No backflips for me, for Skip or Shannon in our future. That is it for Undisputed, guys. Thanks for joining us. We're back tomorrow. Have a good day, guys.